The first time my mom told me I didn't matter, I was 16 and standing on the side of the road, staring at 3 dead bodies my twin sister had left behind. My name's Natalie Carter. I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio with my identical twin, Vanessa, and our parents, Diane and Robert. Vanessa and I shared the same face, the same DNA, but not the same worth. At least, not in my parents' eyes. She was the golden child, the miracle who could do no wrong. I was all the leftover. While I struggled through community college prep courses, dragging my CS across the finish line, Vanessa soared. Perfect SATs. Debate captain. A science fair trophy for innovations in cellular regeneration. She even landed an early acceptance into Stanford pre-med. My parents acted like she'd already cured cancer. And me? Diane would smile politely at relatives and say, "Natalie's still figuring things out." Like I was some kind of unfinished project collecting dust in the garage. But despite the imbalance, I loved Vanessa. God, I loved her. She'd sneak into my room after parent-teacher conferences and paint my nails while whispering, "You're smart too, National. You're just smart in ways people don't test." She was wild and unpredictable, but she was my best friend. Until the night everything changed. We were 17 when my parents threw Vanessa a massive party to celebrate her Stanford acceptance. Music blasted through the house, champagne flowed even though half the guests were underage, and Dad proudly handed Vanessa the keys to his BMW X5 like it was some kind of trophy. I remember watching her from the kitchen, my stomach twisting as she downed shots like water. Her cheeks flushed, her laughter too loud. Nobody said a word. Not even Diane, who just clinked glasses and told everyone how proud she was. When Vanessa stumbled toward the front door, car keys jingling in her hand, panic shot through me. "Vanessa, stop!" I shouted, running after her. She just shoved me hard enough that my back cracked against the pavement. "Give me one night without babysitting me, Nat," she slurred, mascara smudged. "Just let me have fun." I was still on the ground when I heard it, metal twisting, glass shattering, the kind of scream that stains your dreams forever. 6 blocks away. I sprinted toward the sound, my shoes slipping on the asphalt. And when I got there, the BMW was nothing but crushed metal and smoke. A couple walking their dog lay broken on the sidewalk. Vanessa's best friend Nora was half through the windshield, blood dripping down her hair. None of them moved. Vanessa stood beside the wreckage, her body swaying, mascara running in black rivers down her cheeks. When she saw me, she collapsed. "Nat, I ruined everything. My life is over." That's when our parents arrived. They pulled up in Mom's Lexus, their faces pale in the blue wash of police sirens. Diane didn't hug her daughter. She didn't scream or cry. She marched straight to me. "You were driving," she hissed, her nails digging into my arm. "What?" "No. She. Natalie." Her voice was ice. "Vanessa has Stanford. She has a future. What do you have?" "A part-time retail job and a community college application." Dad was already pulling Vanessa aside, whispering instructions in her ear like a lawyer prepping a client. "You were just a passenger. You tried to stop her. You begged her. But Natalie wanted to die." The police arrived seconds later, their flashlights cutting through the dark. By then, Diane had shoved me into the driver's seat of the wreck. Vanessa was sobbing to the officer, my sister was devastated about me getting into Stanford. She wanted to crash. She didn't care who she took with her. And my parents backed up every word. I sat there, handcuffed and silent, my throat locked up. Who was going to believe me, the screw-up twin, or the Stanford-bound prodigy with 2 grieving parents crying on her shoulder? The trial was over before it began. My court-appointed lawyer told me to take a plea. Vehicular manslaughter. 15 years in prison. Maybe parole in 10. The night before sentencing, Vanessa visited me in my holding cell. Her face was swollen from crying. I'll write to you every week, she promised, clutching my hands. I'll become a doctor and I'll use every dollar I make to hire the best lawyer in the world. I'll fix this, national. I swear I'll make this right. But all I could see when I looked at her was a coward who'd let me drown so she could keep swimming. She hugged me one last time. The next morning, she boarded a plane to California. She never wrote. She never visited. 5 years later, I learned what she did instead. But that wasn't even the worst of it. 5 years into my sentence, I'd stopped believing in miracles. By then, prison wasn't just punishment, it was erasure. My family had scrubbed me from existence. Old friends stopped writing back. Even relatives who'd once sent Christmas cards forgot my name. Sometimes I thought, maybe Diane was right. Maybe I really don't matter. Then one afternoon, a guard pulled me out of my cell. "Visitor," he grunted. My heart jumped. Who could it be? Vanessa? My parents? Some lawyer who finally believed me? But when I stepped into the visiting room, it wasn't family at all. It was Lena Parker, Nora's older sister. Nora, the girl who died halfway through that windshield. Lena's eyes locked on mine. They were the same shade as Nora's, but harder, sharper. She slid into the chair across from me and whispered, "I know you weren't driving." I froze. The words didn't sound real. Lena leaned closer. Nora was FaceTiming me from the car that night. I still have the video. My chest went tight. She pulled out her phone, glanced around, and pressed play. The screen showed Vanessa behind the wheel, glassy-eyed, swaying to music, slurring lyrics while Nora laughed nervously. And then, the sound that haunts me even now. Viv. No. Nora screamed, grabbing the wheel. The video cut off right as the car swerved. I couldn't breathe. But we're identical. To a jury, she and I. Keep watching, Lena said. The video flickered back on. This time, grainy and shaky. But clear enough. Diane's voice. Robert's hands. They were pulling me into the driver's seat while Vanessa sobbed. "Say she tried to kill herself," Mom whispered. "Say she couldn't handle your success." Proof. Actual proof. My parents caught in the act of framing me. I sat back, trembling. My first thought wasn't freedom. It was Nora. She died, and Vanessa just walked away. "I should have come forward sooner," Lena whispered, her face crumpling. But I was only 13. I didn't understand what I had. I couldn't watch it. Not until now. She wiped her eyes. "I can't bring my sister back. But I can get you out." For the first time in years, hope flickered in me. Lena promised to go to the media, to lawyers, to anyone who would listen. "We'll bury them," she said fiercely. But hope never lasts long in my story. The very next day, I got another visit. When the guards led me in, my stomach dropped. My family was waiting. Vanessa. My parents. Even their lawyer. Vanessa looked radiant, untouched by grief or guilt. She wore a sleek black dress, her skin glowing like she'd never had a sleepless night. She was everything I might have been if my life hadn't been stolen. I could barely look at her. "Where's Lena?" I asked. Diane smiled. That cold, smug smile I'd known all my life. She realized the video was just her traumatized imagination. "She's in a very nice facility upstate. Indefinite stay." The blood drained from my face. They silenced her. Just like they'd silence me. Their lawyer slid a pen across the table. "Sign this. An affidavit admitting you coerced witnesses from prison. If you don't, we'll make sure you never see daylight again." My throat closed. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tear the paper up. But all I saw was Lena, locked away, drugged into doubting her own memories. My hands shook as I signed. "Good girl, Robert said quietly, gathering the papers. I thought that was the end of it. But then Vanessa leaned forward, her lips curling into a smile that made my stomach twist. Oh, and Nat? We've changed our minds about minimum security. You're clearly dangerous. Orchestrating schemes from inside. We'll be recommending Supermax. No parole. Her words hit me harder than any prison guard ever had. That night, I lay on my cot staring at the ceiling, numb. 10 more years. No possibility of early release. No Lena. No way out. 2 days later, they shackled me for transfer. The prison van had no windows, just metal walls that rattled with every bump in the road. The ride felt endless. When the doors finally opened, I saw it, a concrete fortress rising out of flat, barren land. 20-foot walls crowned with razor wire. Guard towers on each corner. A place built to swallow people whole. Supermax. The air was heavy with silence. Even the birds seemed to avoid it. Inside, they led me to my new cell, a 6-by-8-foot box with a concrete slab for a bed and a steel toilet bolted to the floor. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, painting everything in sickly yellow. My first month nearly broke me. 23 hours a day in solitary. 1 hour in a cage they called the yard. No human contact, just guards barking orders through a slot in the door. I scratched tallies into the wall at first. Counting days. But eventually, the numbers just made me want to give up. In the tiny steel mirror, I didn't even recognize myself anymore. The girl who used to paint her nails with her twin sister? Gone. All that was left was someone hard. Someone who could survive anything. Or at least, that's what I told myself. Because deep down, I knew something else was coming. Something worse. Prison changes you in ways you don't notice until it's too late. In those first months at Supermax, I thought I was going insane. I would talk to myself just to hear a voice. Sometimes I'd pretend Vanessa was sitting across from me, still painting my nails like we were kids, whispering that I was smarter than people thought. Other times, I'd talk to Nora, the girl who died in that car, and apologize for not saving her. The silence made my head heavy. The fluorescent lights buzzed so loudly I swore I could hear them even in my dreams. But then, one night, through the air vent above my bed, I heard a voice. Count slow. Breath in, out again. It was the woman in the cell next to mine. Her name was Marisol, serving life for stabbing her abusive husband. She'd been in solitary for years, and she knew exactly how to keep the darkness from swallowing you whole. So every night, she coached me through exercises, push-ups, wall squats, breathing techniques. She said it wasn't about staying strong physically. It was about reminding your brain you still existed. And slowly, I did. Still, I couldn't stop thinking about the night everything went wrong, not just the crash, but something smaller, something that had haunted me for years. It was the summer we turned 15. Vanessa had just won first place in a statewide science competition, and my parents threw her a party in our backyard. I'd been working for weeks on a simple painting I wanted to show them, a portrait of me and Vanessa, done in oils. I wasn't great, but it was the first thing I'd been proud of in a long time. When I brought it outside, Diane didn't even look up from serving hors d'oeuvres. Nat, don't distract from your sister's big day. Vanessa had turned to me then, her eyes soft. It's beautiful, she whispered. I love it. But before I could smile, Robert took the canvas out of my hands and leaned it against the trash can. She needs the spotlight tonight. Don't steal it. I never painted again. Now, lying on that concrete slab, I realized something that made my stomach twist. My parents had been preparing me to be disposable long before that night on the road. It wasn't about the crash. It was about hierarchy. Vanessa was the chosen one. And I was the sacrifice. That realization hardened me. By the second year in Supermax, I'd stopped crying. I'd stopped scratching tallies into the wall. Instead, I started writing, documenting everything. Not for a judge or a jury, just in case someone, someday, found the truth. I tore strips of paper from library books, smuggled pencils through hidden channels, and tucked the pages into cracks in the paint. If I couldn't be free, at least my story would be. It was around then that I met Carmen, a paralegal turned inmate who'd been caught laundering money for her boyfriend. She still remembered enough law to make guards nervous. We spoke through the vents at night, our words hidden by the hum of air circulation. She asked me careful questions: how fast had the police arrested me, what evidence did they present, who'd testified. When I told her my parents had coached Vanessa and shoved me into the driver's seat before officers arrived, she let out a low whistle. They eliminated investigation. Classic strategy. Get you to confess before anyone even asks questions. So there's no way to undo it. I whispered. Her silence told me everything. But then she added, there's always a way. Just, not through the courts they control. That was the first spark of something I hadn't felt in years. Not hope. Strategy. I started devouring every legal book Carmen smuggled to me through the library system. Case law. Precedents. Stories of people who had overturned coerced confessions. I memorized them like prayers. Still, survival wasn't just about knowledge. It was about alliances. And in my third year, something happened that changed everything. Budget cuts. Supermax was overcrowded, and suddenly, my solitary cell wasn't mine anymore. They brought in a new roommate, Maria, a 40-something woman with dark eyes and a face carved by time. She'd been locked up for 15 years for killing her husband. The first night, she studied me like I was glass. Then she shook her head. Too soft, she muttered. You're still waiting for rescue. She wasn't wrong. Maria taught me things that weren't in any book. Which guards could be bribed with commissary ramen. How to pass messages through food trays. How to make a weapon out of a toothbrush without getting caught. She also taught me the most important rule: trust no one. But she must have seen something in me, because over time, she let me into her circle. Through her, I got access to information, guard rotations, who owed favors, which administrators could be bent. And then, one day, Maria handed me something she'd been working on for over a decade, a hand-drawn map of the prison. Every blind spot. Every weak point. Every guard rotation. Memorize it, she told me. Then burn it. I held the map in my hands, my heart pounding. For the first time since I'd been shoved into that BMW, I realized something that sent chills down my spine. My family thought they'd buried me alive. But from inside this cage, I was learning how to fight back. And I hadn't even seen the worst of what they were capable of. Not yet. By my 4th year in Supermax, survival wasn't enough anymore. I didn't just want to endure. I wanted leverage. Maria had given me the map. Carmen had given me the law. And I had given myself time, years of listening, learning, waiting. Through the prison library job, I got access to newspapers and magazines. That's where I started tracking Vanessa again. My twin. My mirror. My ghost. She'd graduated from Stanford Med. Top of her class. There were photos of her in a white coat, smiling next to children she'd saved. Headlines called her a rising star in trauma surgery. The world thought she was a hero. I clipped every article, hiding them inside law books. At night, I'd spread them on my bed, staring at her perfect face until mine blurred in the reflection of the steel mirror. The resemblance had faded. She looked polished, radiant. I looked like concrete had carved itself into my skin. Same DNA, different destinies. Then one day, an article stopped me cold. Vanessa had given a TED talk about the twin she lost to prison, me. She said my mistakes had inspired her to devote her life to trauma care. She described my incarceration as a tragedy that fueled her determination to save other lives where she couldn't save mine. I read the transcript 3 times, shaking with rage. She hadn't just stolen my freedom. She'd turned my suffering into her brand. That night, Maria found me pacing. "You've got fire now," she said, almost smiling. "Good. Fire keeps you alive. But fire in prison attracts danger." 2 weeks later, a guard accidentally dropped a tray on me during chow, scalding my hands with soup so hot my skin blistered. Another day, I found razor wire tucked into my laundry. These weren't accidents. My family knew I was still breathing. And they wanted to change that. Through whispered conversations, Carmen confirmed it. Your parents have friends in the system. Judges. Lawyers. Guards. If they can't silence you legally, they'll do it physically. I learned to watch everything. Who lingered near my cell? Which guards lingered too long at mail call? Every shadow felt like a blade. But I wasn't just defending anymore. I was digging. Carmen and I pieced together threads from financial records she smuggled through the library. My parents had set up a trust fund in my name. Millions, technically mine, but managed entirely by them. They'd been siphoning it for years, paying Vanessa's tuition, their gated community mortgage, their wine club memberships, all while I rotted. The money trail was proof. Not of the crash, but of corruption. And corruption is like blood in the water. It attracts sharks. I started writing again. Not just my story, but every detail of their betrayal. Dates. Times. Direct quotes. I described the crash. The coaching. The threats. I hid the pages inside book spines and mattress seams, just like before. If I vanished, my words wouldn't. Meanwhile, prison itself was boiling over. A new warden had cut library hours and slashed commissary privileges. The small freedoms that kept inmates sane vanished overnight. Tension exploded into riots. When chaos broke out in our wing, Maria and I barricaded ourselves inside the cell, listening to screams and tear gas exploding down the hall. My chest shook with panic. But Maria just sat on her bunk, calm. "This is what happens when people are pushed too far," she said softly. "The outside world thinks we're animals. But we're just mirrors. Show people their own cruelty long enough, they'll call it chaos." By morning, 3 women were hospitalized. And I had made a decision. I wasn't going to wait for Vanessa's perfect life to suffocate me anymore. The next time I got my hands on a confiscated smartphone, just minutes before a guard sweep, I searched her name on social media. The first photo I saw made my throat close. Vanessa in a white dress. Her wedding day. Standing beside another doctor, smiling like she'd never seen a day of pain. But what made bile rise in my throat was the caption, "Named our daughter Nora, in honor of my best friend." Always remembered. Nora. The girl who died in the car she drove. The girl whose sister had risked everything to prove my innocence. And Vanessa had dared to turn her into a prop. I nearly threw the phone across the library. Maria's hand clamped over mine. "Don't waste it. Use it." She was right. That quick search told me more than I thought possible. Vanessa was public. Accessible. Conferences. Charity runs. A wedding. A baby. She wasn't hiding like my parents. And that meant she could be reached. Carmen and I spent weeks building a plan in whispers disguised as book discussions. We couldn't appeal the case yet, not without Lena's testimony, not without the video. But we could gather intelligence. Find cracks. Use Vanessa's public image against her. Meanwhile, Maria pressed a folded piece of paper into my palm one night. "Guard rotations," she whispered. 15 years of watching. Learn it. Then burn it. I memorized every line. By year 5, I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was preparing. Preparing for the day my family's lies would bleed into the daylight. And I knew, deep down, that when that day came, it wouldn't just be my freedom on the line. It would be everything they'd built their empire on. And I was finally ready to set it on fire. By year 6, I knew one thing for certain: my family would never stop trying to bury me. Every small victory, a lawyer responding, an ally smuggling evidence, was followed by retaliation. My cell searched. My privileges stripped. False disciplinary reports added to my file. It was a war of inches, and I was bleeding slowly. But then, a ripple broke the silence. News trickled through guard gossip. Vanessa was scheduled to deliver the keynote speech at a national pediatric trauma conference in Chicago. Hundreds of doctors, cameras, journalists. The kind of spotlight my parents worshipped. And that was when Lena, Nora's sister, the one they'd institutionalized, resurfaced. Through the underground commissary codes we'd built, I got her message: I'm safe. I have the video. I'll be there. I sat on my concrete bunk, fists pressed to my temples. My chest ached with something I hadn't felt in years. Not hope. Not yet. But anticipation. The conference day came. I wasn't there, of course. I was still locked in Supermax, staring at beige walls. But the prison TV in the common area played the news that night. 30 women stood silently in the audience during Vanessa's speech, holding photographs of themselves as children. Survivors of families who had locked them away, silenced them, buried them for reputation. And in the middle of them, Lena. She held a picture of Nora. The crowd shifted uneasily. Cameras flashed. Security couldn't remove them without causing a scene. Vanessa stammered, her perfect confidence cracking. The keynote was cut short. The next day, whispers filled the prison halls. The State Medical Board had opened a review of Dr. Vanessa Carter's license. I didn't sleep that night. My heart pounded so loud I thought the guards could hear it. 2 weeks later, another blow landed. An independent journalist published the video. Not just Vanessa behind the wheel, drunk and swaying. Not just Nora screaming her name. But my parents. Dragging me into the driver's seat. Coaching Vanessa on what to say. Proof. The internet exploded. Within days, Vanessa's hospital suspended her. The speaking engagements dried up. Her memoir deal collapsed. My parents' gated community neighbors began whispering. The perfect family was rotting from the inside out, and for once, the stench was too strong to ignore. Back in Supermax, guards tried to break me harder. An emergency psychiatric evaluation was ordered, the kind that could mean permanent drugging, maybe even memory wipes. But the psychiatrist never showed. Turns out, the journalists had also dug into him, and his license was under review for falsifying patient reports. Every weapon my parents used against me was starting to turn in their hands. By year 8, it was a landslide. Vanessa was arrested for insurance fraud, money she'd secretly collected after the accident, while I served time for her crime. My parents filed for bankruptcy after legal fees drained them. Their lawyer, the same man who forced me to sign false statements, was indicted for witness tampering in multiple cases. And me? For the first time, I was scheduled for a parole hearing. The night before, I lay awake rehearsing what I would say. But when I walked into that room, shackled, thinner than I'd ever been, I didn't need rehearsals. I told them the truth. Not about the crash, that was still tangled in bureaucracy. But about who I had become inside. The literacy classes I taught. The inmates I helped earn JEDs. The way I'd survived 8 years of a sentence I was never meant to live through. I didn't beg. I didn't cry. I just stood in the wreckage of who I used to be and refused to shrink anymore. The board voted unanimously. Parole granted. When I walked out 30 days later, drizzle wetting my face, I carried everything I owned in a plastic bag. No one from my family was there. But Lena was. She pulled up in an old sedan, hair tucked behind her ears, the same determined eyes that had once promised to free me. She didn't hug me right away. She just looked at me, her lip trembling, and whispered, "You're out." And that was enough. The aftermath came fast. Vanessa was convicted on multiple charges and sentenced to 5 years. She served 2 before early release for good behavior. She lost her medical license permanently. Last I heard, she was working as a clinic assistant in another state, drawing blood and filing paperwork. No longer a golden child. Just another fallen star. My parents. They live in a dingy apartment now. Robert stocks shelves at a hardware store. Diane works retail. When I see them at the grocery store, we pass each other like strangers. And that's exactly what they are. As for me, I started over. I enrolled in community college, the same path I'd been on before my life was stolen. I studied accounting, then business. I graduated with honors at 30. At the ceremony, Lena sat in the front row, cheering louder than anyone. Now, I work at a non-profit that helps women escape abusive families. Every balance ledger, every class I teach feels like spitting in the face of the people who told me I was worthless. I live in a small apartment, nothing fancy. But it's mine. The walls are painted a pale yellow, not concrete gray. At night, I sit by the window and look up at stars I couldn't see through prison bars. Sometimes, I dream of Vanessa. Of the night she shoved me on the pavement and said, "Just give me one night without babysitting me." And I wonder if she ever thinks about me when she stares at her reflection. If she sees what's left of herself without me as her shadow. I don't forgive her. I don't forgive them. But I'm free. And that, finally, is enough.